every time I hear that song, I can't help but think of Limmy, the Scottish comedian, winning his little dancing contest. That's stupid but hilarious. This once secluded little hamlet called Thorn, just down the hill from Bidwell up there, it's recently been completely swallowed up. You can see the amount of traffic. It's been completely swallowed up by new developments all behind there on all sides. But there's one little bit that they left alone. This used to be farmland and sort of heathland. Not really heathland because it's on chalk, but that kind of environment. They've built on the lot. It's all gone now. But down here, they have left this one little bit alone, and within it, we've got a spring, which is always a winner in my book. Thorn Spring, it's known as. And also there's an old moated enclosure. Very little is known about it. From what I can gather, it's an 11th century moated enclosure, and it would have been a defensive site. I just need to bloody find it, because there was an information board back there where I walked in off the road. And although it showed you where the woods were and where the footpaths were and where the picnic areas were, blah blah blah, didn't mention anywhere on that visitor board, and didn't show anywhere on the map where this old moated castle is. No more pretty little hamlets dotted amongst the farmland. It's all rapidly just getting swallowed up into this big mass of housing estates. Luton, Dunstable and Houghton Regis don't really have much in the way of distinction between them anymore, wherever you look. I really hope I'm going to find it, because this footpath I'm following doesn't actually seem to tie up with what's on my OS map. Quite possibly something to do with all those new houses through there. If we don't find it, I'll do my best to at least find the spring, although from what I can gather the spring is at the moated site. Ah, here we go. What's this going to tell us? I'm fairly sure we need to be somewhere in here, so I'm just going to carry on up this path. It's quite a nice little walk, whatever, and even if I don't manage to find the moated enclosure, we've got another one to go and look at in a minute over at Higham Gobion. Where we are here, just over the hill in that direction, is Houghton Pit. Like I said, it's about a mile from home here. Now, all of that water that comes out of Houghton Pit and goes into the River Ousel. Oh God, more houses. All of that water that comes out of Houghton Pit joins up with the spring that we've got somewhere in here, and it all heads off to the north. Where does it go? The northwest-ish. It's not very far into Houghton Regis in that direction. We must pass over some sort of ridge along the way, because over there in Houghton Regis, not very far away at all, there's a spring which forms Houghton Brook, which then goes on to form the River Lee, and that heads southeast. So we're kind of on the cusp here between where the water goes to the River Ousel and the Great Ouse, and where the spring just down the road goes off in completely the other direction down towards London. I'm going to ask a dog walker. I can see one. 200 yards this way, on the left. He didn't know it was an old historical moated enclosure, but he said there's something up here which might be just what I'm looking for. Now, that bloke back there said about 200 yards, and he said it's sort of near the reed beds for the sewage works. Well, I can definitely smell the sewage works, and I might well have been a couple of 100 yards by now. Can't be far off. It's a shame that. I don't think it's even a local problem. I think it's all over the country. Anywhere you get lots of little springs and streams coming out of the hills, they tend to exploit that water source as a sewage treatment works. One of the worst ones around here being on the River Lee at West Hyde. I feel so sorry for the people who live there. It stinks. And it's smelling kind of like that now, so I might be getting close. Well, I've followed my nose and I've found the sewage farm reed beds behind a metal fence, and whoever would want to buy one of those houses, their thought processes are way beyond me. Right, I don't know. I think maybe he got a bit confused and thought that I was actually talking about the reed beds. Well, I've now walked the length of the woods all the way down one side. I've reached the bottom. It's just waterworks galore down here. There's the most recent phase of development, and you can see that all of this here, they've put a road in. As soon as you see the road, you know that that's getting done next. Well, I'm going to walk my way back up the other side of the woods, and you never know, we might find something along the way. I'm not holding up much hope, to be honest, and I'm thinking that even if I do find this spring, it's not exactly going to fill me with joy to see how it's inevitably ended up. What we got down here? Which way is that flowing? Oh, it's flowing from up there. Okay, well, possibly a good sign. Might be going in the right direction. There's quite a few lumps and bumps going on here, but I just scooted up the bank there and had a quick look. And there's nothing there that looks like any sort of enclosure or motte and bailey. I think these lumps and bumps are probably just quarrying and spoil heaps. So we're right next to Higham Pit. And maybe the best thing I can do here is follow this brook down here. I know I'm looking for a site with a spring. Well, I found the brook, so maybe that'll lead me to the spring. Forget about these notice boards everywhere, they're useless. It's gone dry, look. As I've made my way up the hill, it's gone dry. I must have missed a convergence somewhere. I think I'm going to call Thorn Spring a day for today. I'm beginning to wonder, actually, if I need to be a bit further off to the north. But it's all been built on. I'd presumed it was in these woods. But, I don't know, is there a spring and a motte and bailey castle in the middle of a housing estate? It wouldn't surprise me. Anyway, let's just go to Higham Gobion, shall we? Because I knew it was going to be mildly upsetting to come here and see all the development that's happened. I drive past it all the time, but to actually come and see it this close up, I knew it was going to be unpleasant, but there was always the lure of a spring and a motte and bailey castle. If it means I've got to start... No, not today. Let's go to Higham Gobion, where we know we can look at something cool. Boo doo boo boo, wagga wagga wow wow, Nutbush city limits, wagga wagga wow wow. Anyway, so as not to waste my half-assed research, it was given to the de Gurney family, wherever it is. It was given to the de Gurney family in the 11th century by King Henry I. And I was going to comment on the fact that Gurney, now whether or not the name Gurney is a direct ancestor of the de Gurney name, there's still a hell of a lot of Gurneys around here, and I've known quite a few over the years. All that development back there, it's not even just a little patch. It goes all the way from Dunstable along the back of Houghton Regis towards Luton to the M1. It is miles and miles and miles of open land that's been built on. I'm still driving past it now. It just goes on and on and on. it's difficult to know who to blame. I mean, you think, oh, greedy farmers can't be bothered to work, just selling off their land for enormous amounts of money to be houses built on it. But then, at the same time, it's not like the government really make it easy for farmers, is it? You know, they seem determined for decades and decades to just grab all the land they can to build on. They're putting farmers out of business on purpose. They really don't want farming in this country, do they? You know, leave that to the peasant countries where all the stupid people live, seems to be the attitude. You know, we'd rather be a nation of call centres and Amazon warehouses. Very nearly at Higham Gobion now. It's just off in that direction. But I thought I'd just quickly stop at these fields, which are between Hexton and Higham Gobion, because this is where there was a really good account of a sighting of the Bedfordshire big cat. I don't know exactly which field it was, but it was on this road, in one of these fields. A guy, I think it was snowy weather, and a guy pulled over because he saw something running across one of these fields, and he wasn't the only one. He stopped to have a look, and then 2 or 3 other cars pulled up behind him. No jaguars today though. Now isn't that much nicer? It's really nice here at Higham Gobion. Here's the church. Now we need to find a footpath just down the road which takes us behind the church. Now can you see over there? That church on the hilltop on the next hill over. I think that must be Gravenhurst, the iron ore church, where we went not too long ago. Now, I'm 100% certain we're actually going to find this one. Just need to go down there a bit. Some cheeky devils removed the public footpath sign up there at the road, but I'm clearly on a bridleway at least, because there's hoof prints everywhere. Now, as far as I can determine, this should take me pretty much straight there. The properties I'm just passing on my left, they've got tennis courts and swimming pools and stuff like that, which makes me wonder if they might just be the people who don't want people using this public footpath. Now this so-called castle we're going to see at Higham Gobion here, it's really heavily debated as to what it actually was. Now, originally people always thought that it was a Norman Motte and Bailey. The Gobion family, who were friends of Henry I, were given this land, and it's presumed that this structure we're going to look at was a Motte and Bailey castle of theirs. But in more recent years, people have said, well, no, it's not Norman at all. If there was anything Norman here, that's not what you're looking at. They reckon it was a medieval fish farm, a fishery. And I have to say, following this this footpath down to the so-called castle, I'm going quite sharply downhill. I'm headed down into a little valley, which would have been very marshy at the time. This has all been drained, all this land, in the centuries since. So at the moment, the fact that I'm going down into what would have been marshy ground makes me think this was not a castle. Let's see what we find. I think this must be it. Yeah, this is the spot. I recognise it from Google Maps. What we're standing in is a big triangular banked enclosure. I'm standing at I guess I would be at the easternmost point of that triangle. And as you can see, it's hollow. You've got banks around the outside, and then there's this thing in the middle. Doesn't look much like a bailey, does it? I can kind of see how people might have just presumed, without ever having investigated, obviously, people might have just presumed that this was a castle. But looking at this, I can see it much more as a medieval fishery than a Norman castle. What these banks that go all the way around, look. In the middle here, I'm guessing it'd be maybe 2 metres deep, with the banks around the edge holding in the water. And there was what do they call it, a leat? I can't remember which side it's on. We might see it, it might be obvious, but somewhere along here there's a leat that used to feed the pond. I wonder if we can see anything on this side. That looks almost like another small pond there, doesn't it? If you ignored the modern fence, is that flowing water down there? I think there might be a stream the other side of that fence, you know. Let's have a look. Bit on the dry side right now, but yeah, there is. So that lump in the middle, not a bailey, thought more likely to be either a breeding island, it was described as. Now, I mean, as far as I'm aware, fish breed in water, not on islands, but I've seen it described as a breeding island. And the other theory is that it was just somewhere safe. Oh, look at this, it's a big pond. There's no way this is a castle. This is definitely a big medieval pond. The other theory is that this island in the middle, and it sounds more likely to me, is that it was just somewhere secure for the bloke who raised the fish. What would you call him? The fish farmer. A place for the fish farmer to keep all of his equipment securely. Maybe he had a little boat or a causeway or something to get across. And the other theory is that he actually lived on it, you know. He lived in the middle of his pond, which was his way of earning money. Let's have a look on this island. I wonder who lives in there. Any poo? Oh yeah, rabbit poo. Right, well, this little island, this little hump in the middle of the pond, it's very steep. This little plateau-y bit at the top, if you could even really call it that, it's only about 3 or 4 metres across. He wouldn't have been living on here. I think it's far more likely, as they say, that it was somewhere to store all of his equipment safely. And breeding, whatever they meant by that. Of course, the other dead giveaway here, which to me says it wasn't defensive, it wasn't a castle. Wow, look at all those sloes. Bumper harvest on this little mount. Anyway, yeah, the other thing that says to me it definitely wasn't a castle is, although it's surrounded all around the outside by banks, they are just banks. There are no defensive ditches on the outside of those banks. So they weren't for keeping enemies out, they were just for keeping water in. See where we're standing right now? Look across to that bank there. We'd be standing under 2.5 metres of water. And looking on the OS map, just over that way, there's something marked on the map, not even half a mile away, which is marked as the manor. I think it's still an existing farm from what I passed back there. But if that's what's called the manor, maybe that's the site where the Gobion family actually lived. Sloes in abundance, look. I mean, I don't need to bother because I've still got a freezer full from last year, or maybe even the year before. Well, that didn't turn out so bad, did it? Two things I expected, really. I expected Thorn Spring to be depressingly developed and somewhat destroyed. I wasn't expecting to not find it. I've got a feeling it might have been off further to the north through that housing estate. I don't know. But here at Higham Gobion, got to see what I suspected before I came was going to be a medieval fish farm. rather than a Motte and Bailey castle. I can only presume that nobody's ever investigated, nobody's ever dug it. Although I'd have known a long time ago that there's no way that was ever a Motte and Bailey castle. Very good to see. Sometimes you just have to come and check for yourself, and in that case it just smacks you in the face straight away. Right then, I'm going to go home and mess around in the shed for a bit. I've got a dust extractor, a big noisy dust extractor to install so that I can carry on using the shed making things. Go on then, let's have a very quick look at the church while I'm here. I don't know anything about this church, but looking at it, I don't think it's all that old. Because other than this little bit at the end here, which looks older, to be honest, than the main bulk of the church, it's all of the same construction. The really old churches, you see, they'll have a tower added at a later date because they were built in days when towers weren't possible. They'll have little extensions all over the place. Other than this little bit at this end, it's all of the same construction. Pebbles all cemented together. I think the door's open. Let's pop in. There's some lovely gravestones. Might have a quick look at one or two on the way out. Let's pop in and have a look. Doesn't appear to be a massively old church. Certainly not Norman, not 11th century or anything like that. Just by the fact that it's got a bell tower that matches the rest of the building. We've got one mention here from 1684. Near unto this place lieth interred the body of Thomas Halfpenny of Faldo, late of this parish. I don't know what Faldo is. There's nowhere around here called Faldo. Odd. And down here at the altar end, a little organ there, look. Very nice. Down here at the altar end, there's one very old. It looks like lead that's been mounted into the wall. Here we go. We've got a coat of arms and some lead figures. And this says, "Here lieth buried Jane Cason, the wife of Edward Cason, Esquire, daughter of Sir Henry Butler Knight, who died the 9th day of September 1603. So that's the earliest date I found on anything in here, 1603. So, you know, maybe this was a 16th or 17th century church. All the earliest gravestones I can find out here, and here's some nice ones, look. These are from 1820. So, the oldest ones in the graveyard are from the early 19th century. Again, suggesting that church isn't actually very old. There you go, one last gorgeous view. I'm off to the shed. See you later.